Don't miss my brand new GB News show, Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with me, Angela, and sitting next to me, Martin.
So let's take a look at today's front pages.
And the Times leads with the new chief of the Metropolitan Police, who says that it should be easier to sack serving officers.
And the Guardian says migrant guards at the World Cup are being paid just 35 pence an hour.
Staying with the World Cup, and the Daily Mail says ordinary fans are furious at being banned from drinking beer at matches, while VIPs in corporate hospitality still can.
That's one that I can identify with. And the Weekend has gone with the Treasury, who warned that Number 10 plan to cut migration in the UK will mean higher taxes.
And the Daily Express says techie prices are increasing as they cost more to raise. Though I do wonder if actually bird flu's got something to do with that as well.
Might well do. So let's dive through the papers now. Joining us this morning is Olympian legend Chris Kabusi and showbiz reporter Stephanie. Actually, welcome to the show. Now, first of all, Chris, I have to ask you this question. There's a big rumour that you always carry your Olympic medal with you. Is it true?
Always, Martin, always.
Show us your medals, mate.
Always, and get out of his pocket. But I actually lost this last week. I lost it last week.
How did you manage that?
Oh, well, I went to a friend's house playing golf, and then it ended up being in his sofa, but a little panic for...
Down the back of the sofa.
That's what I found down the back of the sofa.
It beats finding 10 minutes down the back. I think he carries it because he's afraid someone's going to nick it.
Well, I'll catch them if they do.
It's true, yeah. We'll have to try and get away from you, mate. All right. So, Chris, let's move swiftly on. It's quite a serious story on the front of the paper here. It's one that I certainly have a lot of interest in, and it's I think an astonishing claim. Yeah. The Number 10 is warning that if we cut migration, it will mean higher taxes. How's that work?
Right, yeah. So, Martin, I open up because the real story is in page 4.
Yes.
And I've made 3 points from page 4. The first thing Jeremy Hunt admitted yesterday is that the higher than expected migration is needed to drive economic growth, to ensure that he hasn't need to further increase the 55 billion of tax rises and spending cuts. Now, the Honourable Member for Tatton made a very good point on our show, saying that if you don't have to. You do not have to raise these tax measures that you have done. He could quite easily have cancelled HS2. Now, I know there would have been issues, but could quite easily have cancelled HS2.
100 billion.
100, and rising, looks like 147 billion.
Yeah.
And rising, could be as much as 200 billion. So, you don't have to worry about migration. Well, the migration, you don't have to worry about the 55 billion. If you really want to look after us, the people, you could have touched HS2.
I'm with you on that.
I'm with you on that.
I tell you what, because as somebody who has a home in the West Country, was brought up there, I can never understand why we're spending all this money on a railway service which goes to the Midlands, that already you can get to Manchester in 2 hours and 10 minutes, and then you can't get to the West Country in under 3.5 hours.
Now, Chris, there's something else in here. I'm sure you've seen this, but I really want to pick up on this, and that's it's extraordinary allegation that the government is planning to soften the form of Brexit. Negotiated by Boris Johnson by removing the vast majority of trade barriers that exist between us and the EU. What is going on there?
Exactly. So that was my point number 2, Martin. I knew with you on the line, your eagle eye would have definitely picked up that where we go. This is what we call thin edge of the wedge. If they're seriously discussing reducing some of the situations that the former Prime Minister had put in there, then we are in trouble. We voted in 2016 to leave Brexit, leave the European Union, and I was part of the people who voted for that. Leave it alone. And this is what you see now when you get this soft, left-leaning Conservatives, and I'm not even sure if they are Conservatives, mealy-mouthing, and you can just see now picking away at the Brexit scenario.
Yeah.
And so, no, Mr. Hunt, we know where you're going. No.
I think the government just have a really hard time of just admitting that they've messed up with Brexit. So we're just getting all these little tricklings of confessions and little things like this going on, and it's just the government have made a mess of it, and now it's like trying to rectify it in little measures such as this.
Yeah.
Aren't they also saying that actually the situation has changed and therefore they have to change with it and do what is best for the country at the moment under the circumstances in which we find ourselves?
Yeah, well, I'd like to believe that, but as was just said, the honourable member of Tatton said, HS2. If you really want to do what's best for the country, then don't tax the middle classes, don't tax the small, medium-sized businesses, cut your vanity projects. You won't have one champagne opening less, but leave us alone and let us regenerate the economy. We've just come through a pandemic. We've not been able to go to work. Let's get to work and create an infrastructure where we get rewarded for the hard work and employing other people. In what world do increasing taxes help us to regenerate the economy? In what world does it ever happen?
And in what world do we spend all that money on a railway when we could actually be spending it on the country?
Now, Angela, I'd like to quickly pick up on what you just said. I know we had a big argument before we even came on air about this.
we have to say, let's put this into context.
And it's this.
I voted to remain. You voted to leave. And I'm in the middle of the two.
But it's a nice balance. But the point you mentioned about the opinions have changed on the basis opinion polls. Therefore, the government should change tack mid-government. Chris, surely you agreed that the electorate voted for the mandate to get Brexit done, and this is a soft soaping. This feels like a U-turn.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think they're just testing the waters. How many of you people really want to reverse Brexit or dilute Brexit? And so they're testing the waters.
No, I'm just saying they're doing it for the best of the country.
But there's one more piece here, because actually people vote for Brexit for different reasons. So it says here, he says, based on the single market, I don't think it's the right way to boost growth because it would be against what people were voting for. Now, I know Martin was part of the group of people who wanted to control borders and members of the single market. For me, I voted Brexit because I was scared of economic and military union. And I wanted to make sure that the people that were voting and making decisions, I could get them out. And I thought if they were in Brussels, I couldn't get them out. Actually, the last 3 years, I realised actually our government is not in control of our economy or our sociality. Because what happened with the COVID pandemic and why it was rolled out told me that wasn't about our government, it was something much bigger. So I wanted...
They made a mess of it.
They did.
Well, let's move on because we've got other stories to talk about.
Martin, you should have me on your
Olympic levels of common sense.
Yes, definitely.
Right, as if this country hasn't been through a lot. Now we are going to potentially this Christmas be dealing with Turkeygate, as I like to call it. Because 1 in 3 birds that have been bred for the holidays have either died or been culled because of the outbreak of avian flu. And right now that means it's going to affect how much turkeys are going to be costing in the shops. So last year it would have been about £39.84, and now it's set to go up by 17.5% to 83 pence. The thing I don't like about stories such as this, it just creates this kind of panic. And what's going to happen is people are going to be going in their numbers, going to get their turkeys, and there'll probably be nothing left by Christmas. And there's always been this food hysteria since the pandemic, and it feels like it's just something that's continuing and it's not going to slow down.
And it's also a tradition to have turkey, isn't it? Why not? Well, chickens are in the same position, but why not have salmon or beef or pork or something that doesn't affect it by avian flu?
I actually think that's what will happen. Is that actually you? And I feel sorry for the turkey farmer who spent all of his years getting his prime product ready, and actually now it's been shot down in flames.
But it's a low cholesterol meat, it's low fat meat, and you can buy them frozen and keep them for months.
Yes.
And it's like 21 quid for a turkey crown, 28 quid for a whole bird. My kids love it. Get down there and buy it now. Turkey's brilliant.
It's just part of tradition, Christmas tradition. I find it a bit weird not having the turkey on the table.
So, Chris, let's move along from Turkey. This story on the front of The Guardian is an extraordinary further damnation, I think, on what's going on in Qatar. Revelation that guards, working as security guards, are on what? How much? 35 pence an hour.
So my thoughts on this, first of all, look, this decision was made 12 years ago, and it's quite clearly it wasn't right, and someone's pockets has been lined, many people's pockets have been lined for us to be playing football in the middle of winter in the summer in Doha.
In a country that has no tradition of football.
100%, now, with this 35p an hour, though, we've got to be very careful, because 35p an hour in our country, obviously it would be ridiculous. But when you delve into the paper, the security guards say they know they're being underpaid, but they feel powerless to act. However, they go on to say, we put up with it because we need the money and are grateful to at least have a job that pays more than they can make at home. I'm happy because I get something. It's a struggle, but I don't care because I don't have anything. So in a supply and demand economy, these guys are grateful for the... I know it sounds ridiculous, but, you know, like the country my parents come from, and I see bankers in Nigeria who get paid an awful wage, but they're fighting for that position because they're getting paid a wage and they get exploited, you know, so that, you know, they work in 16-hour days and there are young ladies, you know, 19, 21, and they fight for that position. So I know it's awful, I know it's exploitative, but in that economy, they're fighting for that position.
Yeah, but what sticks in the craw on the same front page, and I'd be interested to get your take on this, Steph, 100 million to David Beckham.
Yes.
So his endorsement of the World Cup, this grotesque inequity of money. Steph, there's a lot of talk about brand Beckham. Can it survive this toxicity? What do you think about that?
I don't think it can, because, you know, David Beckham has always... You know, David Beckham has always been that face of football, but with Qatar and the legacy that is shaping up for this World Cup is nothing positive. And to think that he's put the paycheck first before moral duty, it makes me personally hard to see him in the same light. And, you know, he's been banking for that knighthood for years, but I think this has really scuppered his chances.
And also, I mean, again, I think it might be in the paper somewhere, but I was listening very early this morning on radio when they were discussing the fact that anything between 3,500 and 5,000 workers have been killed in actually building these stadiums, and that is a scandal.
I mean, it's awful. I mean, in London 2012, we were rightly very proud of the fact that we reduced. I don't think at one stage I know that there was no deaths in building the Olympic Stadium. And absolutely.
Okay, so Steph, let's move on to the next story. Moving to the front of the Daily Telegraph. Rishi Sunak fears for safety of women in the UK.
I'm glad that he's spoken about this, but I just hope it's not lip service. He's saying this is more of an emotive response for him because he's been fearing for the safety of his two children, his two daughters walking the streets, his wife, and he says obviously recent cases that have happened with Sarah Everard and Zara Eleni just show how hard it is for women out there, and it's something that women have been talking about for decades. We don't feel safe on the roads, we don't feel safe to go out at night, where we should be in a country where that is the case. And a part of Rishi's plan is to get more prisons and then more prison officers on the street as well. And I think for me as well, it's also empowering women. For me, I had to take self-defense classes earlier this year because I thought, because I don't feel safe when I'm walking on the streets, and no one really prepares you in school what happens if you're being attacked by a man. So it's giving women those different advantages as well. I think should be out there.
Someone who's been mugged twice. I am very careful when I'm out, and it is very interesting that there is actually a lot of advice out there for women. I mean, I haven't gone to the extent of taking self-defense classes, but there are certain things that you can do, and I don't. And it's not being a wimp. It's being sensible and it's being careful. But I think, you know, if Rishi Sunak is going to be able to do something to make it safe for women, and not just women, but young people, young boys, in general. Let's just say it's women. It's in general.
It's tough though, isn't it? You know, like I go walking in the woods at night, late at night, right? And I've got no worry whatsoever.
You can outrun them.
Well, my little girls would go, Papa, aren't you scared of the bad man in the woods? I go, no, I'm the bad man in the woods. That's a different story. But the challenge is that you know, as a man, you can go somewhere.
Yeah, you can.
And you don't generally. I mean, I can go around the corner and might see 4 or 5 guys think, you know what, maybe not, and I'll go the other way.
Yeah.
But in general, I don't worry about my safety when I'm out in the streets. And so it's really sad to think that other human beings, the female side, can. I've got 3 daughters. Can be really that petrified where you're actually taking, making sure that you're going to the right place at the right time, not to be in that scenario. That saddens me for you.
Okay, so Chris, quickly moving on. Another front page Daily Mail this time, another Qatar story, and there's been some quite a lot of fans grumbling about the fact that the last minute the Qataris have pulled the rug on being able to get booze inside.
And that's it. It's last minute. It's underhand, and it's bad news. And the worst side is that depending upon your level and your status, as to whether you can drink in the stadium. So in the corporate boxes, you can drink champagne and you can drink beer. It's just that, and I can understand where they're going with it. I don't understand why they did it now. Why didn't it say 12 years ago, no beer? But if you think you're in a nation, a Muslim country, where that's the rules anyway, but you're not used to catering with vast groups of people who are on the pop, then I can understand they don't want to be overrun by beer-swilling fans. But it's really underhand to do it at a time when you can't pull it away. And it just goes to show you again, this is the weakness of Western civilization in the capitalist world, because we sold our soul to a nation, to a country that doesn't understand our values.
And also, back to that kind of inequality story about Beckham and the migrant workers, this is going to hammer the working class fans, not those in the corporate sandwich box.
No, precisely.
10, 12 grand a pop.
Can I just ask quickly why it's necessary to get boozed out of your skull to be able to go and watch coffee?
It goes hand in hand.
I mean, coffee and cream, beer and
the pain of watching England.
And when you know you're going to be losing, you don't want to be able to compass mentis.
I'm the straight man. Give you guys a chance to make the jokes.
You know, fans might actually enjoy it booze-free. It will be a different experience for them. I know, like, you know, watching football in this country goes hand in hand with alcohol, but maybe them going there and having these booze-free matches, there'll be less fights, clear enjoyment, so maybe they might bring something back where there could be less booze in football. We wish, anyway.
Now, in the last few hours, Adele has finished her much-anticipated show in Las Vegas after being postponed earlier in the year. Now, she said it was perfect and it looked just how she imagined. Well, the singer thanked fans as she opened the show at the Coliseum venue at the Caesars Palace Hotel. Stephanie is still with us. Steph, what has been the reaction?
The reaction has been quite good for Adele because there was a lot of pressure. She cancelled this show last minute in January with a video seeing her in floods of tears. Fans were quite annoyed, and rightly so.
Why did she do it?
At the time, she said the stage wasn't ready. She said in an interview with Elle magazine, she said that the stage and the whole show just felt soulless. It wasn't Adele. At the time, we was at the peak of COVID, so there was a lot of delays that was happening to the production of side of it. And Adele has famously said she gets a lot of stage fright. So if your production is not going well for your own show in one of the biggest venues in the world, that's not going to help at all. So she pulled it last minute. Now she's come out and said she's going to be giving the absolute best of her. I do worry because this goes all the way to March, so it's going to be 31 dates, and it's going to be quite grueling and taxing on her going back and forth from Las Vegas to LA where she lives.
It is a grueling schedule.
But there'll be a lot of people that would quite happily take the sort of wonga she's on for singing at the moment. I don't know about you, Chris, but you know, I think for 31 nights.
I'd like to be Adele for a minute.
It's like,
how much is she being paid for this?
Oh, millions. I can't even count the amount of zeros she is for this.
And she's on a 3-year contract, isn't she?
She is on a 3-year contract. But the thing is, Adele has said that after she finished this residency in March, she wants to step away from music again because she'll like to do training in English literature, again, online degree in that. So I think this will be the last bit of Adele we have before she does escape.
The only thing is, I mean, when you think in the past, the stars that have also done this gig in Vegas, it doesn't half take its toll, doesn't it?
It does, so that's why I'm worried because she's already been practicing 12 hours a day rehearsing for this show. And the fact that she's going to be doing this every weekend till March is going to be quite intense on her mentally. But I think right now she has extra pressure with all the world watching to see how she's going to do. So hopefully when she's not performing, she does have that time to kind of switch on. But even in the actual venue itself, they spent up to like £400,000 just to make sure she's getting the best air quality so her voice stays intact.
So 400 grand for air, counting the tour. Sounds a bit diva-ish.
Well,
following down that diva route.
You know what? Whether she likes the word diva or not, she is a diva. And she's one of our best national exports when it comes to singing. So she is going to get that treatment, and she's got fans worldwide as well.
And also, I think Stephanie, once she gets the wheels turning, 2 or 3 weekends done.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't say money for advert, but she's got to be able to know that gig, right?
Yeah.
So she can't be worried about a performance unless she's got a cold or something like that. So, I can understand these sort of teething problems. Once you get your first 2 or 3 weeks under, I can't compare this, but I did pantomime, and once the first week's over and done with, it's great. It's great because you know the cues.
You do it for 6 weeks, you're not doing it for 3 years.
Yeah, but I thought you said up to March.
Yes, all the way up to March 2023. So it's like every single weekend.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm a professional speaker. I do 50, 60 days a year, and I absolutely love it. Book me for some more. I love it. So I won't complain.
One thing we can guarantee, there won't be any booze bans in Las Vegas.
Definitely want to keep
Chris and Steph are with us for more papers as we go through the morning. More to come, though, including more reaction to the autumn statement and how it affects you. But that's going to be after the weather.